of health as well. We do not see a demand of new business in the market, at least for some few months, and we think that this will continue in this fall, most likely. This is why our strategy is in this moment to concentrate on renewal and helping the client, even if normally this is not part of our core business because the value is considerably lower than in general transactions. I wanted to have your thoughts on this. Do you target as well the renewal chapter? And because some contracts will expire for sure in the COVID period, and the clients have a need of renegotiating, even if they don't have a need for, you know, stepping in a larger, more beautiful office space.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in and answer. The government have helped as people don't get thrown out of their offices even though a lease has expired, because no one can go in and help. But the negotiations, some tenants think that they can get a really good deal at the moment, and that is true. But the cost of relocating is a lot of money, and landlords don't want any voids. So there is a real balance of people agreeing some quite competitive renewals. But we're not seeing any rental drops either in new property. So if anyone's going into new property, they're only going to really good quality ones.
Charlie,
and I've noticed a lot of the we're really starting to see more viewings come in. I think yesterday my whole leasing team was in, and we had across the board about 10, 12 viewings. That's a lot, you know, even in a normal day. So it's really encouraging. Investment is picking up as well. But we're really struggling. We're getting lots of buildings to let, but we're not getting any new tenant work, and that's really worrying because, you know, that's 40% of our business. If relocating and all sorts of stuff. But don't get me wrong, we're trying, getting leads and so on, but it's very difficult. There's too many agents in London fighting for the same work.
Yes, in Romania, what we see is that it already appeared on the market of the subleasings. The multinationals try to restructure a bit, and they kind of have the space for future expansion now converting into sublease. The feedback that we have from the market is that companies like CBRE have already reduced their teams, and for the people, especially maybe on the asset part or on some the property side, but also for the ones that they kept on the leasing, they reduced significantly the remuneration, the salaries. Okay, I think your market may be a bit more active and maybe will kick on sooner a bit than here in Romania. But even the renewals, I think that have potential because the landlords will be motivated to retain their clients, to negotiate. And I think it will be important to have a negotiation skill at the table. Here in Bucharest, we usually take the fee, the transaction fee from the landlord. And in this way, you can have almost like much closer to a new relocation, a classic transaction for the leasing part. I don't know if in London you have other practices. I would be interested in this, or maybe in Germany or elsewhere.
What do you mean other practices? What do you mean other services we offer, or?
No, if when you make a renewal process, you are paid by the client or by the landlord.
Oh, sorry, yeah. So if we act for a tenant, we always get paid by the tenant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and then if we act for the landlord, we act for the landlord, and we get paid. So I think that's very similar across some of the areas, but I think your model is very similar to America, because they do that there. The landlord pays for everything, and it's wrapped up in the deal. So
Yes, we sometimes have tenant representation mandates, but most tenants prefer not to go on the, full side with all the services, and they rather prefer a sort of mediator at the table and paid by the landlord. It is a bit strange for me as well, but this is much more competitive in terms of fees towards the brokers, and this is how the market is going with the big multinationals and everybody.
yeah. I think our market might change over the next. Well, we said this 5 years ago, but it hasn't. But over the next 5 to 10 years, I think that model might come in more, because more and more the landlords are employing agents like myself to work there, and they're speaking to clients direct as well, so tenants direct to get them to take space. So that's that model might change. Is anyone else? I'll go on, Ian. Thanks.
We've seen that a lot especially in the retail space. A lot of clients have sort of leasing directors now who are sort of dealing with, pools of tenants directly.
Yeah.
Certainly on the lease renewal side, our fee-based basis would be, generally speaking, both sides will have an agent, and the both sides will be paid by their respective clients, be that landlord or tenant. So I think that certainly I'm not aware of any moves to see that change, but clearly, we do come up against the sort of EMEA sort of mandates, if it's certainly on sort of tenant work, where Google, for example, would have CBRE on a retainer, I think across Europe. So, clearly that's a bit of a challenge getting involved for us. And maybe that's something that Corfat can look at as to whether or not, we might be in a position to try and pick up mandates across jurisdictions. I think that, similar to you all, activity levels are very low. We are seeing, we'd seen on the office leasing side, we've seen a lot of deals put on hold. Most of those seem to be coming back again now. And we've seen some very large lettings, primarily in the sort of tech and pharmaceutical spaces. A lot of them have had very good crises, if such a thing is possible. Less activity in areas like aircraft leasing, which is Dublin is a very big centre for aircraft leasing, and clearly there's going to be a bit of distress there. As I think I mentioned on yesterday's call, on the investment side, we're very reliant on overseas capital, and we're really hamstrung there that decision makers can't come to Ireland to actually sort of kick assets and see what they're buying. So we're not going to see a great deal of investment activity until people are able to travel here. I don't know how many times I've said to people, you've got to really want to buy a building if you want to come here and quarantine for 2 weeks, in order to inspect it, especially as the pubs are not just been announced. The pubs won't open till the 10th of August. So, times are hard here. And again, we've seen, I think it was mentioned by others, we've seen the big agencies have cut staff, CBRE and I believe Savills, let people go. And similarly, we've had to cut our own cloth to reflect the sort of reduced fee income.
Ian, what we've seen, just following up on your comment of the CBREs of the world, where they've cut staff, and in fact, in some cases we've seen where they've been a little bit less attentive to their clients. in the past some clients who were leasing clients for them, and as you mentioned, globally as well in many jurisdictions. We've had some parties come to us, or we've gone to them just because of phone calls that we've made, really, and introductions that we've had, to just simply say what's happening, because the market has changed significantly, and we've positioned it that we've gone to them really just for an open conversation, not asking for a mandate, but to understand what their needs are, because we're still playing in the same sandbox. And out of that has come a couple of leads for us where we've effectively given free tenant rep advice as to what the leasing manager of the company could do in dealing with the leases. And what we found is that, it happens to be CBRE and Cushman in another case, where the people who they were dealing with are either not there anymore or just not very attentive to their needs. And they were very hungry to speak to someone. As a result of that, we'll hope that we further along with other mandates. But I completely agree with you that the market has changed, and we used it as a platform to just go and meet people and be willing to give free advice and see what comes out of it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah.
Have you guys noticed that some clients are approaching us because they're fed up with the big corporate being wrapped up in those mandates? So they'd rather have a niche, a specialist or someone. I've had that from 3 companies now who've approached us to act for them, where they fed up of actually all 3 of them are with CBRE, and albeit the people they're using are very good guys. So maybe it's just they're all American-owned businesses. Have you had any of you guys had that experience?
No, but it's a trend I'd like to see continue.
To us, it happened recently. I mean, in the last 6-9 months or so, with 2 clients, we have received a very good feedback. The idea is that they become more and more aware that what they get in there is a Polish labor, labor, sorry, not labor, and but they were not receiving a proper service. And some German companies outlined to us that what they need at the table is someone to take ownership on their project and to be very committed and very trustworthy and very actually not to pretend and to send reports and to seem like working, but actually to do the job. We are trying now to highlight this, and maybe we should consider such an objective to integrate in the Corfax marketing, because I think this is the advantage that the entrepreneurial companies like us have, namely that we are much more committed to our clients, and much more we take ownership on the projects.
Yeah.
I think a former colleague, Voigt, had a saying that we do not report to outside investors, we report only to our clients, and they were using this as a flagship for their marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just interesting to see that, because as Ian said, it'd be great to get more clients across, isn't it, from the big corporates. So, and then where we can, as a group, then extend. And I think that will happen, because they are getting fed up with it all. So, should we move on to the next point, emerging sales and leasing trends? I'm not sure. Well, just on Fairweather's point that, there was we know our stats, which we just finished. Actually, I might share them with you. We normally our market normally lets 660,000 square foot each quarter, but we only let 120, of which we did knocking on 80, 90,000 of that. But I think this quarter will be horrendous, because there's, even though there's people out looking, but the last take up was mainly from people looking before we had lockdown, and then they just did the deals during lockdown. So it's going to be pretty hard. Investment deals are down, obviously. And also, with Mr. Trump, he's an amazing man. He the Huawei thing with the telecoms thing. So if we can't, because the only reason they're pushing that is that if everyone's going to be dealing with the Chinese on that ownership, that then any trade with America will be ceased. So we've had to follow their route, from what I understand, which means that any work with the Chinese going forward, will that hold up? Will that stop them buying in the UK, Europe, wherever? Because they've been snapping up a lot of stock. So that's a bit of a worry. But the political nightmare out there is horrendous, as well as the economy. So let's see what happens. But that's just my view today. It'll change tomorrow, probably. Hi, Bill. You look very smart. Have you had a job interview?
I know. I mean, have you seen my very smart offices here? I'm actually in Jones Day by the Place de la Concorde. I can take you a tour because we've got a view of the Eiffel Tower out the window, and very smart. But in our market, we've had the leasing market for the first semester. So I suppose it's 3 months of work and 3 months of inactivity, has been down 60%, which is huge. But the investment market is only down 20%. So they do show different reasons, because certainly on the investment side, people are trying to get away from the awful returns you get in stocks and bonds or livret A, or the instability of the stock market. So they're coming in, and there's a fair amount of money. Now, we haven't got the same lockdown as Ireland and the rest, so people have been able to get around and visit a lot more. I still think our figures, though, are people closing deals that were in action before. Nevertheless, Jones Lang, for instance, claims to have, they see about 11 billion euros of properties on the market, not all with them, but with other people. So there's still a big weight, and we're like all our markets. We have, on the investment side, we have about 60% of it happens from autumn, from September till the end of December. So people are hugely relying on that. The limiting factor, though, is debt, and debt is debt's quite easy to get from those funds in London and the rest. And I'm doing quite a bit of work for people like DRC and Tindaris and Tyrus and others, because they are short-term debt, equity suppliers, anything like that. However, when you come back to the cheapest debt is a mortgage loan from a French bank. Some of them have got interaction, but even though we ended lockdown on the 11th of May, the first committee for debt for BNP Paribas, so it's the second or third largest bank in France, is on the 30th of September. And it does make you wonder what the French do between the 11th of May and the 30th of September to actually get into action. It doesn't sound like they're too overburdened. So that's certainly limiting factors. And the volume of requests, because I'm working with clients on trying to find debt in quite a few circumstances. We show people are willing, but they have not. It's the bureaucracy of getting to a committee that really is off-putting.
All right. Yeah, and I think the whole debt side, Ian's probably got a bit more of a say on it as well. Is I think money's still quite easy to get, but it's you can buy some property. I'm not sure where the investment market is in London, where it's dropped. Max, you might have a view on the German stuff. Ian, where's the investment market? Because all I keep seeing on LinkedIn from you guys is you're buying and selling a massive kit. So very impressive, but it'd be good to get your view.
Oh, did I can send you specifically our 48% of the market slide. You may have missed it. But yeah,
well done.
we were pretty lucky. Just and as Bill has said, most of our Q2 activity was deals that were struck Q1 and Q4 the previous year. So it was really just having guided that stuff through. So yeah, we saw a pretty low level of activity. I think there were only 14 deals done in the country, which is obviously pretty pitiful. And I suspect it's going to be even lower for Q3. I mean, Q3 is what we're we're worried about, because there is no pipeline of deals. You know, I'd be slightly more confident about Q4. You know, we can see, you know, we're working on that pipeline now. But I think, you know, touch wood of one or two things, you know, might just bear fruit. But similarly, I would chime in again with what Bill was saying about financing. You know, we have seen, we've seen, you know, the sort of non-bank lenders, if you were, withdraw. And they've withdrawn purely because they can't get here to look at stock more than anything. And you know, the Irish banks have taken that as a opportunity to jack up rates and quote really unreasonable terms. So you know, again, once travel recommences, you know, I'd expect to see some easing of terms again.
Yeah. Max, how are you finding your market at the moment? Is it similar to what we're talking about?
Yes, quite similar to also what Bill said. The market is very strong, remains strong. It's maybe, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it's 10-15% below what it was last year in terms of volume. But on the leasing side, for sure, I mean, everything is stuck. I mean, there's no real decisions coming. So maybe, which is not so much our type of work, but of course the transactions on the leasing side are way down. And I expect that to stay for the rest of the year. So, I mean, the numbers that our leasing teams are doing are not good. Investment side is very strong. It's continuing to be very strong. I mean, yeah, with maybe the exception of course, hotels. Even in that segment, we have, you know, opportunistic buyers. We have clients who are in particularly trying to buy smaller hotels which will go out of business, looking to convert them into, you know, elderly homes. So that is all continuing. Really, I mean, I think we have, you know, essentially in terms of financing, I think Germany, especially Germany, it's extremely liquid. There's such a competition amongst the banks, so different to what Ian is saying in Ireland, that that is continuing at, you know, record low rates, record low margins. Yeah, but on the leasing side, I mean, especially for our business, it's not going very smoothly at all. So we are trying to use these, you know, our leasing teams also to feed in investment deals into the investment department. So we're really, you know, encouraging them to look more towards the investment department and trying to bring them business, because quite frankly, them by themselves will not be profitable. So we've been doing that quite well. Actually, one question I have to the group, did anyone use, I think in English you say it's the furlough program, so where you put your employees in short-term leave? I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, Ian. Sorry, Ian and Charlie.
Yeah, we've the furlough kicked in for us. Well, it kicked in May, I think it kicked in, but we were able to backdate to March. So we put 8 people onto it, okay. And they were the graduates. Phil keeps dropping his phone. It's brilliant.
I know. These executive tables are too short.
It tended to be graduates and secretaries or personal assistants, and then we put one sort of a senior surveyor on it as well. So it was the younger crowd who essentially don't generate work. They sort of process. It's a slightly horrible thing to say, but obviously there have been in our office, you know, and that's really helped. And it's changing after July, where we put a bit of money in to keep them on furlough, and then furlough currently finishes in October. So it's, you know, it's been really helpful for us. But, you know, actually with the redundancy processes and what we've done as well, you know, most of those, 2 of them are going to come off in July because we need them back. because work's getting busier and feet in the ground, if that makes sense. Well, we're only doing it if the income rises, and that's the balance we need to get. And then that will be it. No, because unfortunately we've trimmed the teams down, as everyone has, as the guys of CBRE, BNP, they're all on redundancies across the board. So, but we were going to do it anyway, and I know it sounds awful. We've used this as an opportunity, as everyone has probably. So it's quite sad, but we've put where we know that clients are looking for people. We've put 2 of our younger guys into work for them, and so they've got jobs straight away, which is great for them.
Yeah.
You know, they can always come back when things get better as well if they choose to. Is that? Do you not have that in Germany, or have you?
No. We have that system, of course. Actually, we didn't use it. We were discussing it actively. In the end, we didn't. Most of our competitors, so the JLL, CBREs, etc., they have been using it. But I mean, of course, we're trying to trim the teams as well. But we haven't used it, and I think now now the work is definitely back. So, it would have been for a time period, maybe, March, April. Maybe. Yeah. But that is, yeah.
So this is that governmental program that helps companies by paying 80% of the salaries.
That's right. Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah. I was speaking the other days with somebody with a manager from Daimler, and he was telling that they were 3 months on this program, and that they were a bit prepared by the authorities to be able to activate it once again in the fall if the second wave is consistent. And the government will provide further this support in Germany, at least. In Romania, we have analyzed as well this with some fiscal advisors, and they put us a bit on thoughts. They said that if you are not in a very difficult situation at the moment of requesting this aid, like, I don't know, you have some backups in your bank account and so on, it can be considered something not okay, the fact that you use the service, and we decided not to access it. Whatever you do in a period of emergency, they say that it is considered automatically, if it is economical criminality or something, you go on the largest penalty possible afterwards, and we got scared. But many companies, our clients, are using it, and everybody does.
Yeah, no, everyone's used it in the UK, very much so, and it has helped. But really, it's aimed at the sectors which have been hit with zero income, which are the retail sectors, essentially, isn't it? So, but then there's loopholes where some of our clients who do events and so on, they're not part of that. So, albeit they can use the furlough, but not to the extent, because the retailers have got a different level of furloughing. They can extend it a bit longer.
Yeah.
My colleagues are speaking about, a client is kicking on the market. Now they are writing on the group. So Adobe is searching for 10,000 square meters here in Bucharest. I don't know if any of you have worked with Adobe, so we will approach them immediately.
Yeah,
Adobe's a subsidiary of Microsoft, isn't it? Who owns Adobe?
I think you're right, Bill, because I think Cushman's were advising them in the UK. So, yeah,
we'll try our luck. I will ask the American people and search the database as well. Okay, so someone 10,000.
Someone in the States might know someone there. If you do it on the website.
Yeah. With the States there. But the crisis is an opening to handling things a different way. Frankly, the pitch where you turn up at the reception of Adobe and ask to see the property manager, and you're asked by name, you're there with a you're there with a box of cigars because it's his birthday. I mean, that would actually work today, I reckon, as in Wall Street. The loyalty to these large corporate firms, if they need 10,000 square meters, they're going to, the person that turns up on the door. I mean, these are exceptional circumstances that we're going to see for the next 6 months, 18 months or so. And I'm not hijacking a little bit the line you were following there, Charlie, but my view is that if any of you at the end of this year, if I asked you to go through what you've done this year, and it was the same as you did last year, we do leasing, we do a bit of investment, we do something else, that I'd wag a finger at you and say, you've done something wrong. You really haven't been intelligent, because you should all be trying to do one new thing or two new things at the detriment of closing down, or not closing down, but reducing perhaps your leasing activity or other thing else. Because that is the way we're going to survive the next 12 months. And there are so many interesting things we could do. And that's where we need to exchange more and suggest it. I mean, between all of us, from Daniel and Ireland and the rest, there's such a base of knowledge. I mean, I was just writing down as we were talking, one of the subjects is finding finance for your clients in whatever they're doing. So they're going to buy something, they need to finance it, or they actually own it and they need to refinance it, or they have a partner who's pulling out and they need to put an equity in it. There are many other versions. So you'd be surprised that you're in Romania, you could take a client who's Romanian and bring him to the main bank of Romania and get a fee for it. Some people are so unproactive within clients. So there's a fee on that. There's also the equity raising, which is what typically, that's all the people in London who, now I know that these firms will go so far east into Europe and might not get as far as Romania, but they'll certainly do all the Western European countries. There is, I'm sitting down with DRC, and what we're doing is we've got out for them a list of all the investment transactions for the last 7 years. We assume a debt is rarely more than 7 years old. We've then removed all the names of the classic French institutions and all that, and we've done a few other removals. We've ended up with a list of people who are basically mom and pop investors, or they're little people, or whatever they may be, and we reckon that they may be at the end of their debt. And on that basis, we've reduced a list of, say, 10,000 transactions or 5,000 transactions over 7 years. That's been reduced to just 60 or 70. And we're now working out how to approach, most of which we do know, how to approach them and talk about finance in a way that it's proactive. We're calling them. We're saying that we have a lot of people that have mandated us to see if we can place debt or equity into their assets. You know, we're just about to start that phone around now, and I'll tell you what it's like in about a month or 2 months' time if it reveals nothing. But I think it'll get a conversation. It will get us sitting in front of that person on a subject which wasn't how to let your empty building or how to sell it. It was a different subject. So that's finance. The next one is distress, working out. I can tell you that there's a lot of funds looking to buy properties in your country that are in distress or going to be sold at a discount. So when you read that the main retail mall or the main shoe distributor has gone bust or something else, obviously it's very sad, it's all the jobs, but there is work behind there. Actually, if it's gone completely bust, you're dealing with the receiver, which makes it more complicated. But on the way, as you hear that some large multinational or national or large local firm is in distress, and you know where they're based, you know where their factory is and where their headquarters is, there's something possibly to be done on their properties. That's where you need to have a team that's actually trying to go, that's following the newspaper, all the financial press and the rest of your country to follow it through. There's following through. When you've got that, we can let you know the names of many people who will follow you on, but you know them already. The value-added firms, whether they are from your own country or they're from abroad, you probably know most of them, but you haven't had much to deal with them because they don't have anything for you to let or something. But that doesn't mean that you can't approach them and say, look, I know there's a department store in the center of Heidelberg that is currently vacant. It's for sale. It could be for sale, it's off market, and I think we could convert it to residential on the upper parts, and we can do gymnasium, we can do many other uses, obviously not a department store, which probably isn't the best highest use. So there are follow-ups on that. I think you can also approach people on property management, because generally speaking, people are unhappy with their property managers. They have occasional good years when they love them to bits. And then there's always a year where the rent's not coming in, they're not satisfied. Everyone now at the moment is looking at their property managers and wondering why 35% of the second quarter's rent has not yet been paid. And they know why, but they're wondering why their property manager isn't more aggressive and on the phone. I'm a property manager, so I'm getting those calls. You could turn up at this time and actually pitch, because most of these people in management are often on yearly contracts. You could be pitching to show how you are going to get all the rent in for quarter 3, quarter 4 this year, and so on, and all the other things, all the bells and whistles you can add on. And if you did a pitch like that to 3 different clients, I am certain one of those clients will give you the mandate. So the work is out there, the steady work is out there, some of which is just correctly paid like management, but other bits like, just to go back, financing is like an investment deal. If you sell a building, you might get 1% or more, or I know in Germany it's much more, but 1%. If you arrange the finance, you can get 1% at least, if not more. So why don't you try and do something different than just to get the finance? Also, there's the subject of building fit outs, and that's what's actually made one of the point of cash flow for, say, Jones Lang for the last 10 years was they acquired this Spanish firm actually that did fit outs, and it's now in France, it's 28% of their income. They are wonderful. They will take the headquarters and they'll fit it out completely to the design. I mean, it's a team of hundreds of people, but there is work to be done on build out or fit out, and so I think we should set the point that everyone on the call and all the other ones who aren't on the call should be putting forward a proposal to say what is that extra facet, extra service that they're going to provide for the second semester of 2020. And then if we get a list, we get 2 or 3 people said, let's do finance, or 2 or 3 people said, let's do distress, or whatever it may be. Then a smaller group could get together, and I mean, I'm on quite a few of those. I'd be very happy to work a building plan and a business plan as to how to set up something you haven't got, possibly, or develop something you've touched on. Because no more must you say that, oh no, we don't really know about that, we don't have control. For instance, don't say we are not licensed by the German state to advise on finance. You're absolutely right. You cannot write a finance document. However, you do not need a license to introduce the client looking for finance to the finance house that has it, and you can get the same fee. But you clearly there are no rules restrict this. You are brokering finance, and the fee will be happily paid usually by the bank, because it's then rolled up in a global fee, which the tenant pays everything. So the borrower pays everything. So
that's a great.
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly underline that. Like, we've started a debt advisory business this year, and I think it's interesting because there are so many new players, and you're not coming up against established mandates as a result. And it is a sort of, I suppose, a more traditionally brokerage-based business now. I mean, obviously CBRE have a debt advisory business, as do most of the other large agents, but we haven't found that to be an impediment, because you're not coming up against huge established relationships, and because there are so many people now in the debt, non-banks in trying to provide debt, it's seems to be quite a good market, and our experience so far has been very good. And plus, Bill is right. There is sort of spin-off work comes from this. We've had opportunities come to us via the guy who's running our debt desk. And I think, just from a core fact perspective, if people are looking at that sort of realm, because there are so many people starting up debt funds, if we're able to pool information on people in that space between us, I think that would be potentially a very good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I really do. I think we should take it forward. We've tried in the past to do it, but we just don't. Our clients go off and do their own stuff all the time because they've got relationships where we have, but it's very hard to get in there. But as I said at the beginning of the call, I'm going to have to run away. I'm really sorry, but can I leave you guys to carry on talking? And Daniel, if you just sort of take up the lead and get everyone to chat, that'd be wonderful. So really sorry, I've got to go. Thanks, guys. Have a lovely
Thank you.
rest of the week.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bye, Charlie. Bill, your point is certainly a very good one, and it's one which we've also endeavored to pursue, because we are currently in the process. I don't know if you were on the call yesterday, but I mentioned something that we're taking a well-used structure, say a leaseback, and going to promote it to some parties.
Yeah,
Taking
exactly.
a balance sheet, and instead of promoting properties or other things, we're promoting a structure and putting the parties together. So I'd be more than happy to participate with you and to share ideas, and also to show the work that we're doing with respect to financing, refinancing, and distressed properties, and even not distressed, but just simply a product which can help corporate owners, at least, of real estate.
Well, Daniel, do you think, why don't we just try, I could start off, just do a document that's 1 page per service, and we might have 4, 5, 6 services on it. And I'll just distribute that around all of you, and you'll all of you will have something to contribute and add to it. But that maybe in a very short period of time, we have something that is not perfect, but it has a little description of what the need is, how it can be serviced, and it's to get people out of their comfort zones and realize they actually can do the work. And then if you had that's initially for our eyes only internally, from Mirella all the way back to Dublin. And when you're looking at it, you then perhaps begin to feel that you could do some of those services. We then, at the bottom of it, we begin to say, who could support you? If Mirella tomorrow decided that she was going to go through her investment lists of transactions for 5 years and try and work out what's moving, what's in difficulty, what may not be, and she's also followed up and seen who is lending money in Romania, and then with a backup, we get someone like Daniel or Ian or someone to back her up on a subject where we encourage her to actually go in and pitch or certainly have a meeting with the person on that concern. It might just move it from being currently black magic, and I think that's what you all think it is. These subjects, we don't do them. That's not for us. It's for other people. As if you think the other people are all Harvard graduates with the top degrees, and they have they invent and they have Nobel Prizes. I'll tell you that the people in these worlds are basic, simple people. They don't have the selling skills. They don't have the personality skills. They don't have the background, and they know nothing about property, yet they are getting rather large fees in many cases for doing very little. And it might just, it's a comfort thing to actually show you guys, you really, with a little more opening up your eyes, you have absolutely the competence there's nothing to be lost by doing it. You might look an idiot the first time you approach a client. The client asks you lots of abbreviations. You're not quite sure what he's referring to. But I can tell you, the second client you approach, you'll look a lot better. And if you approach enough, you'll find that you have perhaps brought in a business line that is going to fill the hole in your budget that you are going to see in the next 12 months. And you deserve to do it on behalf of who you are and the staff you look after, your teams you look after.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, up until
Sorry,
now,
if I can ask.
Sorry, go ahead, Max.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that up until now, for us, work between affiliates was always a matter of a transaction, referring a party or referring a transaction. But Bill, what you're saying is that we also have skills which we can refer to each other in order to conclude a transaction and participate that way. I think it's a great idea. Sorry.
And I wasn't actually saying on a fee basis. This is to get we've got to stick together and make things work. I mean, I'm not even talking fees. Is not the point. It's the let's get these missing.
I didn't mean it that way either. What I meant was whenever we thought of each other, though, it was always, you know, can I give you a transaction or can I give you something in this respect? But in fact, there's a lot of knowledge sharing which we can provide to each other without any expectation.
Yep.
This is part of the beauty of Corfac. Indeed,
Absolutely.
we have to assess it more.
Absolutely. Max, did you want to share something?
Sorry, I just wanted to ask Bill, how much of your the financing side of your business, how much revenue do you make from it comparatively to the other lines?
Well, it's developing at the moment. What I've done for at least 5 or 6 years is get valuation work for financing and advisory work for various funds. Never, to be fair, from a French bank. They're not really into paying that at this time. But we've done about 10 or 12 valuations a year at say 5,000 or 4,000 each. In order to give back, it's more than a valuation. It's attending sometimes committees and doing all that. Where we've done is we've gone further on 2 cases where we've tried to get the finance into place. I am desperately seeking finance of 8.1 million to refinance a warehouse, an empty warehouse in Le Havre on behalf of a client. There we'd be on a sort of 400,000 euro fee. It's very difficult to find that lending house. It's a really difficult one. And we have another thing where we are helping to refinance actually a very nice little school building in Paris. So it's work in progress. I'm only at the very beginning of it all, but I've opened my eyes to it. I don't know if Charlie could do this in London. As he said, the clients know each other, and there's probably a list of 100 competent finance brokering houses. When you come to Paris, where the same volume, we were a bigger market last year than London because they were on their knees. We have maybe 3 or 4 brokers, finance brokers. There's houses which have 4 people in, no more than that. We have. Jones Lang has 1 person, but he keeps on. They keep on losing that person. CBRE has a 1-man finance debt servicing, debt advising. There's no competition. What I can do is I can send you finance requests. I mean, many of them are very confidential, but what these documents look like, it looks like an investment memorandum for sale, but it's just slicker. The maths works out. The total of the columns and the total of the lines and all that, they all actually add up, unlike many brokers' tables of areas which don't. There's a clear level of perfection in it.
That's not theoretic broking.
Nothing contradicts, and there's a format. There's a warning, an avertissement at the very beginning. You're clearly defining the terms. There's a very standard document to be done. You add a market. You're so competent to fill that document in, and then the next thing is, who are we going to ask? And that's where we need to share addresses, because they will. I think Western Europe is one big address. And frankly, Max, you have this idea. I can supply you a bunch of names you might not have thought of, but also we can direct you as to how to find those people that are within Germany. You just start. You need to look at your press and other reporting differently, and whereas only your eye was caught by the statement of who did that letting or they sold the building in Berlin or Mercer. Generally speaking, all our reporting would say, and the deal was advised by Jones Day, the finance was supplied by Bayer Hypos Bank, and all that. Surprising amount of information that you've never thought was important. But it really is. When the whole ball of string is unfurling, it's the time. No one else is. The client himself is making some certain attempts, but if one of his properties is not working, he's probably got lots of others. So he's spread his limited amount of time on too many. You can just pick up one of them and run with it, and you'll be saving his day. You'll be, if you can make it. The uglier the property, the more difficult it is. The more grateful he will be against that is the lower the probability of you finding a debt for it.
Right.
Excellent and definitely worthwhile pursuing. Does anyone have any other comments though with respect to concerns that you're finding users have that they're bringing and ideas for how to address them? Just looking at the points that are remaining here to discuss. Would we certainly have found in terms of users of space and wanting to, we've done a reasonable amount of work with some users who want to get out of their leases and finding some reasons for why that might be the case and why it might make sense to help them, and obviously converting the rental streams for them. It's a different aspect of the tenant representation. Usually we're looking for space. Here we're trying to do just the opposite. But nonetheless, companies which, in particular in certain industries which have been hard hit, have come to us for that reason. And we've been assisting them with that.
I had one question. If you know something on this topic. I have noticed that all the big multinationals make now a big advertisement on the direction of providing services for getting back into the offices with, you know, a planning that is COVID proofed and with rearranging your desks and so on. Have you focused on this direction, thought of integrating such a service to provide to your clients either on a complementary non-paid basis or via with a small fee to be paid by this, since maybe you have architects inside carrying space plannings that are now not used, and we in a SOP have reflected on this after a large client that we assisted last year has requested our help. And we thought we have the architect in place, we have the documents, okay, no one passed till now through a COVID, we can be as good or as bad as other people are. And we prepare the material, and now we want to use this material like a sort of a Trojan horse to call on the companies that most likely will come back to the offices in end of this year, and ask if we can help them with such services, and this to be a way of interacting with them, and maybe, I don't know, in 6 months time or 1 month, on 1 year time, to be there when maybe they will be more open to relocate, expand. Do you think this direction has potential?
I mean, certainly for our part, in terms of providing more service, we typically do a client who within 2 weeks time needed to set up, an overseas client within 2 weeks time needed to set up an office. We went and we sourced furniture for them. We got their kitchen set up. We did all of these things. We didn't charge for it. It was simply just part of the service that we provided. And we knew that it was a very short turnaround for them. So in the context of a transaction, I mean, it's part of the service that we would provide. But it is another business line which may be appropriate in certain markets. I don't know if others are following up on this.
It seems to me to be a low-level business line. It's a bit of a one-off. You're not going to do that in 2022, I think. You're doing it now. Both of you mentioned that you're doing it for free. There's actually a liability. You advise them, here's us measuring the desks all 3 meters apart, and there's a white line on the carpet at 1 meter and all that. If your staff then go down, if the staff then go down ill for a completely different reason, you could be partly blamed for something, in that you did that bit well, but you failed to spot that they all congregate on Friday afternoon to have a beer together in the kitchen. So it's a service if requested you need to ask, but I wouldn't have wanted to build a business plan to get serious revenue and actually develop it, because it's got a finite life in it. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it is an opportunity. No one was doing it ever prior to March 2020. So some have made a certain amount of money. We see these rather slick presentations of people's new desks with all these white lines and separated, but it's something that isn't. I mean, I think what you guys are looking for is a business that gets you through the next 24, 36, 48 months. And this, it doesn't appear to me to have that
yes, you are very correct. You are very correct in these observations, and this is the problem that I have with this service, and I am not sure to what extent to propose it and to allocate time. We were targeting it just as a sort of lead generation, like a sort of opening a door to discuss and to help a client with something, just in order for in 1 year time or 2 years time to be on his list of people that call you when he wants to make the move.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
But what the other people are saying is that, but how come the big multinationals are just putting this on their home pages and promoting this service? And I think it is just a way of doing some marketing and of being there, present. We are not closed. We are here, we work, we try to support you. But at the end of the day, it's a big fuss, I mean, we did it ourselves internally. Okay, we are a 20 people company, but even if you are 200, it's not rocket science at all. I mean,
It's all the benefit of hindsight. I mean, one thing we at Bijacary, we sort of club together and get presents for our clients every year. We started 20 years ago, 15 years ago with giving maps, which people didn't have before Google Maps came around, and we've developed into champagne and wines and all that we tend to do. But I tell you, in hindsight, if we knew the coronavirus was coming in January, for 22 euros, we could have got a package that had 10 masks, 2 things of hydroalcoholic gel, deposited to each of, say, 200 or 300, not all our clients, but people we know. I can tell you that if we'd give them, delivered to their, either their home address or to their work address, saying, please use this in the ensuing lockdown, we would have the goodwill, the 22 euros, it would have kept us in business for 4 years with each of those clients. It's so the hindsight of not having been able to think these again, because when the idea came to set in March, you could no longer buy those masks or the gel.
Corfac is coming to the rescue. There's Corfac masks on the way.
Oh, right.
Is that not right, Christy? Christy, are you with us?
Yes, there are Corfac masks on the way. There are, Jonathan, they're shipping to offices, correct? And then
they are. So all of you will, and I think everybody on this call will get them directly. And then there's a note in there from Alan, who's our president, asking you to distribute them to the folks in your office. So we have a pretty good handle on how many people are in each office. But if you come up short and you need more, just let me know.
Oh, well done.
And just don't, if you're going to rob a bank, don't wear it, because you don't want to brand Corfac that's not going to be good.
Yeah, we want you to use the brand, but only for certain things.
We've got it.
Right. Well, I see that unless there's others who have discussions they'd like to pursue, just in the interest of time, I realize that we've used the time allotted for us, but are there other comments to share? Last topic was marketing our services, but I think we've addressed that. I'm trying to go the extra bit and create new services. Bill, you've mentioned that as well.
Yep.
Bill, can I just ask, we talked about Expo a little bit before you got on the call. Were you planning to attend Expo this year, or what is your company talked about? Expo
sorry, me?
Yes.
Well, if Expo's there, I think we will we'll send. Normally, it's Abraham and myself go along. Yes, so we'd send one person along because we've reneged on all the other ones. We've not made it to the other one. So, Max, what's your feedback on our friends down in Munich? Do you think they'll be having Expo Real this year?
Right now it's planned in a very compact format. They call it like a hybrid format, and it's essentially just, it's a fraction of the size that it usually is. But I'm not convinced 100% that it will go ahead.
Yeah.
But for now it's going. I mean, if it's happening, of course we need to go. I mean, ask for sure.
Yes.
And maybe I'll see you there.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to.
That's good to know, Bill. Thank you.
All right, then I thank everyone for participating. This is what virtual Dublin looks like, I guess, right, Ian? And we'll hope the next week we get to see the real thing.
Yeah,
let me show you. Let me show you virtual Paris here. If you can see anything, anything there you recognise?
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Look at that! Eh? What a beautiful.
Lovely
There's even
day.
people.
Seems
There's
not
even
very-
people there.
Yeah, it's pretty damn smart, eh?
None of them are wearing Corfac masks, Bill.
No.
Not yet.
Listen,
Not
listen.
yet.
Not yet. Actually, we've just had a reduced Bastille Day parade, and instead of going down the Champs-Élysées, can you see the scaffolding there around the Place de la Concorde? So the French army, or whatever they did, only went once around the roundabout, which is not quite as impressive. There we go.
You mean Putin had a better show a few weeks ago?
Yes. Nuke them till they glow, says Putin.
They make him Tsar again.
Okay. Well, everyone, thank you very much for participating. And we're looking forward to seeing each other and also to communicating. I know that perhaps Christy and Jonathan could put a pitch in for the weekly calls and the other calls that Corfac has with various topics.
Okay.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks.
Very much,
Thanks,
everybody.
all. Thanks,
All.
Jonathan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Christy.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.